You've got the Gasparilla Bowl. Um, you got Wake Forest taking on Missouri. This is an interesting one, right? We've talked a lot about a group of five matchups, some really good ones, but nothing like the Power Five groups. And you've got Jared and I actually disagree on this one, so we'll get a chance to go head to head and tell you why I chose Wake. But I'll let Jared start and say why Missouri.
Why Missouri? I was really going back and forth here. And I think both teams, Wake had the better year, I think, as far as just overall how it looked, but they were also playing in the ACC, whereas the Missouri was playing in the SEC this year.
Yeah, the
Um,
SEC East though.
that I'll give you that. They had to play some good teams this year, as well. But I also uh, I knew you were gonna go with Wake, just knowing you personally. So I wanted to spread it out here. But this Mizzou team does some good things. Um, they s- they spread the ball around offensively, and can move it a little bit. They are 370 yards of total offense, average. So they definitely can move it. It's just a matter of if they can stop it. But Wake's defense is also porous, giving up over 400 yards a game. So
Yeah, and Missouri is always interesting to watch, especially now that they're in the SEC. They kind of have that Big 12 feel about them. They like to throw the ball around. They don't necessarily play a ton of defense, but then they're embedded there in the SEC, playing against some of those big physical teams. So it's always fun to kind of see them. This year they kind of broke out a little bit. They finished the season really strong with a couple of big wins. Big point working against them. Their leading receiver in terms of yardage, Dominic Lovett, actually entered the transfer portal. They do spread the ball around. Their quarterback there, Brady Cook, he can run as well. He's going to be somebody who's going to have to look to move the ball through the air and on the ground himself, because this Wake Forest defense is a pretty solid one. Another point working in favor of Wake is that it looks like Sam Hartman's going to be able to play in this game. A lot of talk about transfer portal, NFL draft, things like that. But all signs are pointing to he's going to play for Wake. He's started practicing with the team in prep. And then he's going to look to his go-to guy, A.T. Perry, there at Wake Forest, another potential first-round pick this year, at wide receiver, to get after Missouri's kind of middling secondary. Not great, but also not super good either. But yeah, it's an interesting game here, a case study of Wake Forest who started strong and finished weak, and then Missouri who started weak and finished strong. We'll see if that momentum plays a factor.
Wake certainly does have the edge at quarterback with Sam Hartman back there. So
Yep. I would say that Brady Cook at Missouri is a guy to watch on the rise, but yeah, definitely not to the same level as Sam Hartman just yet. Next up, we've got the Military Bowl presented by Peraton.
I don't know what
Peraton, I'm not familiar with either. So you've got Central Florida taking on Duke. This is actually played on the Naval Academy grounds there in Annapolis. So both teams kind of moving up north to jump in on this game, and I think we've got a really good matchup here between Mikey Echoes, Duke Blue Devils, and then Gus Malzahn, Central Florida. So some really prominent coaches bringing their teams up to Annapolis to face off.
Yeah, I like this matchup. I was pretty intrigued when this one came out. I think it'll test. It's a group of five team that's kind of prided themselves on trying to play with the big boys, and then you've also got a Duke Blue Devils team who, in a Power Five conference, is always trying to compete to say that they belong. They had a solid year this year, most definitely. I just I like where UCF is at offensively, as we go forward here, into this game, and I like Gus Malzahn here. He's done it before, obviously, in some really big games. Uh, Obviously, he's not at Auburn anymore, so there's something there. But I do like him in this game. And then I'll let you go into Duke a little bit here, but after that, a few comments on just the Military Bowl and playing in Annapolis in general.
Yeah, so just to touch on Duke, something that's gotten lost in translation in the ACC with the rise of Drake May at North Carolina. You've got a young quarterback there at Duke as well, and Riley Leonard, who's every bit as talented. It seems put up some really big numbers this year, both passing and on the ground. A former actually rated recruit in basketball as well. Didn't make the team at Duke, not quite that good, but just a really talented athlete and somebody who's really able to make some good reads and get the ball out to a good group of wide receivers. Central Florida, something that I see as their strengths coming back. They've got John Reese Plumlee, their quarterback, who's their leading passer and leading rusher. He's been rehabbing an injury, but he's going to be back for this one. He's been practicing with the team. But again, I really like what Riley Leonard's been able to do, teaming up with the head coach, the new head coach there, and giving Duke that return to relevancy that they've been missing for a few years now. And I just think that dual threat aspect of what he brings to the table is going to be tough for Central Florida to combat. Luckily, they do have a guy that they practice against every day on the other side, and John Reese Plumlee, that will give them a good look at sort of what Leonard can do. But yeah, ultimate keys to victory here for either team is going to be the turnover margin. Duke has been pretty good at forcing some turnovers this year, so if Central Florida can hold on to the ball, they'll have a chance to win. But I think Duke's going to be able to force a couple turnovers if they come to play the way that they have the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think so. I do. I did also have to get the edge. UCF. I got a former teammate whose brother plays offensive line over there for UCF, so little edge for them there as well. In that, all the way from Hawaii, he went to UCF. So, but in general too, that game being played in Annapolis, had the chance to go to that stadium a couple times. Once as a player, injured, did not play there, but also then as an alumni the following trip back, and that place is a very special environment on game day, especially for Navy games. I imagine they'll get some of that same atmosphere in Annapolis in general. Luckily for the Duke fans and the UCF fans, if they do go, it's an interesting experience with the campus right there in the heart of downtown Annapolis. I really like it there.
Yeah, super cool place to play. Right there on the water too. All right, the Holiday Bowl, which is played out in San Diego. We got a clean sweep here. Oregon taking it. 78% of our Instagram followers are choosing Oregon. One big storyline to watch: Drake May and North Carolina's struggled to end the season, but around week 8, week 9, he was considered a Heisman Trophy candidate as a freshman. So. Definitely a fun quarterback matchup here between Bo Nix and Drake May. Drake May will have the upper hand in one facet of the fact that Christian Gonzalez, the potential first-round pick out of Oregon, is declared for the draft and won't be playing in this game. But on the other hand, his top receiver, Josh Downs at North Carolina, is also choosing that same route. So sort of offset each other there, but you have to imagine there's some more talent in the wide receiver room for Drake May to work with. On Oregon side of things, though, you've got Bo Nix, who's lost his offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham, the guy that got him to Oregon. He will be returning for next year, I believe, unless I've misread something. But word on the street is that Bo Nix is going to be back, and without Kenny Dillingham this time. But I would expect the offense to be business as usual. UNC's defense gives a lot of room for attacking downfield. So I expect to see Bo Nix doing some things on the ground and through the air.
Yeah, I largely just had to go with Oregon here because their offense has been solid, and UNC's defense has been pretty abysmal this year, which I hate to say, having a former coach who I do like on that staff, but they just haven't been good defensively, and it's been a little too much for Drake May to overcome. And honestly, coming down the stretch, some of those struggles, right? When you have to score that many points, you can start to force things, especially as a young quarterback. And then also, you can see this in college football a lot. Young guys will come out and not really know any better, and they play really well, and then can struggle there towards the end of the year, just trying to do too much or knowing a little bit too much. I mean, you saw with Bo Nix at Auburn, it came out really strong and kind of lost it there. But yeah, I just have to give the edge to Oregon, um, just solely based on UNC's defensive woes.
Yeah, I like this matchup a lot, though. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, the Bad Boy Mowers Pinstripe Bowl. This one's played in Yankee Stadium, and these are two perfect teams, I think, to play in
That's a
that
new
one too.
sponsor. Bad Boy had a bowl game before, but it was not this one, if I
Yeah,
do
I
remember correctly.
definitely like the sound of that one. But yeah, Syracuse sort of getting a close to home game in the state of New York down there at Yankee Stadium, and then Minnesota, another team that's more than equipped to play in the cold weather. But we're all on the same page, taking Minnesota here. Instagram fans are behind Minnesota at 67% support. The reason I like Minnesota in this one is it's just one guy. It's Mohamed Ibrahim. He's the running back
He's a
there at
stud.
Minnesota. Absolute monster. He finished the season with almost 1,600 rushing yards, not counting what he's going to do in the bowl game. They do have a little bit of inconsistent quarterback play. Tanner Morgan is the quarterback there at Minnesota. They try to get the ball in Ibrahim's hand as much as possible, so you don't get to see him do a whole lot. On the other side of things, though, Syracuse also a strong run game. Sean Tucker has rushed for over 1,000 yards, and then their quarterback as well, Garrett Schrader, is a capable runner.
Yeah,
And
that's also the strength of Minnesota's defense, though. Probably, I don't have the list, but they've got to be in the top 10 or so in the country in rush defense this year, only allowing about 106 yards a game on the ground. So,
yeah, Minnesota's consistently top-ranked defensive team, and sort of all facets, but especially stuffing the run there. So Syracuse is kind of a tough pull here. Minnesota, I believe, finished 8-4. But if you looked at their stats by the numbers as far as what their offense and defense output is, you would think that would be a team competing for a national championship. It's just a tough draw for Syracuse here. Moving on to the Cheez-It Bowl, which is actually moved locations. I don't know if that was last year or the year prior, but that game is played in Orlando now.
yeah, it started last year. It moved into a two Power Five team slot from I think it was that in Scottsdale as well. There just wasn't anybody to fill it the year that we played down there. But yeah, in Orlando now, we got two teams that always have high expectations coming into the year, and just didn't quite live up to those expectations this year. Obviously, transition year here for Oklahoma without Lincoln Riley, but it just wasn't the same. Obviously, going 6-6 kind of year for them, and then Florida State. I don't know about you, Tanner, but the program when we were younger was kind of always around and always felt like a really solid program, and they just haven't been that lately. They've been kind of lost looking for something. But 9-3, 13th in the country. I think that might be a little overzealous, but yeah, I didn't really know here. Went with Oklahoma. Um, Probably leaning the other way as we sit here and talk through it again. But
Yeah, I gotta say this is the first one that I've been sort of baffled. I'm surprised that this one didn't end up the way the Ole Miss Texas Tech one did with 100% of the fans going in Florida State. You see 78% there. You mentioned that Florida State, at least recently under Coach Mike Norvell, has been sort of not up to par for what Florida State has been historically. I will say something that he was almost able to reinvent the team through the transfer portal. So both of the two guys we have pictured here, quarterback Jordan Travis, has had a fantastic year. And then on the defensive side of things, Jared Verse is looking at potentially being a first-round pick either this year or next, depending on what decision he makes. And then, yeah, super strong offense. They've got playmakers everywhere. They've got an awesome young running back. They've got a really strong receiver. They've got a 6'7" receiver, Johnny Wilson, who goes up and gets pretty much any jump ball. And then they've got, again, I mentioned Jared Verse already, but then Jamie Robinson as well are both really talented players that are draft eligible. and they're going to play in this game. So obviously, some culture's been built there that not a lot of teams have. When I look at Oklahoma this year, just being honest, they've coasted off of their brand
Yeah.
recognition into this game. You look at a couple teams, and I know the fan bases aren't happy about it, like Baylor, who's playing in the Armed Forces Bowl, feel like they had a better season than Oklahoma out of the Big 12, but because of the name on the chest, they've got elevated a little bit into playing a game that I think is a little bit out of their depth. So that's why I like
It's
here.
about dollar signs.
Yep, you can definitely see that at play throughout college football and in all aspects, and I think this is another example of that here for sure. The Duke's Mayo Bowl, another fun brand sponsored bowl here.
You're
You've
a
got
mayonnaise guy too, and the brownies, baby.
we're all mayonnaise guys. Maryland Terps taking on NC State and the Wolfpack. Some kind of fun, interesting teams that made a little bit of a run and a little bit of noise in their conferences this year. Maryland put up a couple of good fights against Michigan and some other big teams in the Big Ten. Weren't able to pull off the upset on any of those, but still put up a valiant effort. NC State was kind of expected to be a little bit more this year. Obviously, a lot of that was hurt when their quarterback Devin Leary got hurt, but that kind of gave way for young quarterback MJ Morris to take the reins, and he's shown that he can be quite a formidable quarterback himself. Unfortunately for NC State, he's actually injured as well, and QB3 was benched in favor of QB4 a couple of weeks back.
It's
So
always
that's
good.
the reason I'm going with Maryland here. Jared, I see you're going with Maryland as well. If they were at full strength, I think I'd like NC State here. But again, just Maryland kind of being battle tested, and then it's hard to win when you're down to your fourth quarterback.
Yeah, I just really like Maryland here. They've played some really, really good football teams. Pretty close. It took Ohio State a long time to end up the final score. It looks like they pulled away from Maryland, but that was a close game for a long time too. And that was not that long after the Michigan game. Maryland has some bad losses this year, getting skunked by Penn State 30-0. But I think they've got the edge in this game, especially going against the fourth quarterback for NC State going into the season as the fourth guy.
Yeah. The Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. You've got Pittsburgh and UCLA. I like this matchup a lot, actually. Israel Abanikanda is the star there for Pitt, a 1,000-yard rusher himself. They do everything on the ground. Keaton Slovis has re-entered the transfer portal. He came to Pittsburgh through the transfer portal this season, but has re-entered. They're going to get Phil Dracovic, the Boston College quarterback, but he won't be there, obviously, for this bowl game. So that'll be a factor to watch. And then you've got UCLA, who had a fantastic season, was in the Pac-12 championship hunt right up to the very end. Dorian Thompson-Robinson finally put it all together this season. Was one of the nation's best quarterbacks. So I like UCLA in this one. I think they're a more complete team, especially with Pitt kind of having a couple holes in the roster due to the transfer portal and some injuries, whereas UCLA is more at full strength.
Yeah, I'll be brief on this one. I just think Chip Kelly's got this program kind of back, if you would say, at UCLA. And DTR's had a finally, as you said, put it all together. He has had some flashes early in his career, but this season he truly came into his own a little bit. So I think this is UCLA all the way.
Yeah, and we've got a consensus from the Instagram followers on this one as well, 100% saying UCLA is going to win. Orange Bowl, and this is going to be a fun one. A lot of injuries, a lot of transfer portal, a lot of draft sit-out guys in this one.
Who's playing?
Yeah, that's what you have to ask yourself, right? So Tennessee, who's prided themselves on their passing game with Hendon Hooker making plays with Jalen Hyatt. Both of those guys will not be available. But you do have Joe Melton, who has some starting experience. He played a couple games down the stretch for Tennessee once Hooker got hurt. Played solid. He had some good times at Michigan as well, but obviously found himself transferring. Brew McCoy, who was a consistent presence as a receiver there, will get a chance to kind of show off what he can do as a number one receiver with Jalen Hyatt sitting this one out. It'll be fun to watch. He's a former top recruit. He's had a little bit of a turbulent career, jumping around from school to school, but finally found a home at Tennessee. So that's what I'm most looking forward to from Tennessee. On the other side, though, this will be Cade Klubenik's team from Clemson. Obviously, DJ Uyunglele has announced that he's going into the transfer portal. And this is Cade Klubnik's team going forward, the freshman. So it'll be fun to watch him kind of out there running the team. Very Deshaun Watson-esque when I've seen him in a few spot moments throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean that's clearly high praise. I think with Tennessee, Joe Milton was in the battle for that starting spot. I think going into the season with Hendon Hooker, I believe
Yeah,
they made
last
that decision. They made that decision late. Um, I just like Tennessee here, going off the year that they've had. It'd be good to see them finish it off, and truly, um, a little subjective for me here. Not a Dabo guy, so gonna go with Tennessee.
Yeah, you've got the 2 orange teams playing in the Orange Bowl, which is a fun matchup. 50-50, I believe this is the only 50-50 matchup from the Instagram voting, but, yeah, I like Clemson in this one. They have a history of just being a top-tier defense, and they continue to churn out some top prospects on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, we mentioned some of Tennessee's,
The
turnover.
D tackle's not eligible this year, right?
Brissy, he
Yeah.
is. I don't know if he's planning on playing. I haven't heard anyone that is planning on opting out at Clemson, but it seems like there's always someone behind them, even if they do, and that's why I give the edge to Clemson is just that defensive consistency, whereas
The
Tennessee's
depth,
strength on the offensive side is um is a little bit depleted.
yeah, I will give the edge. Clemson is going to have more depth going into a game like this, just having built that recruiting base for a little bit longer period of time with Dabo there, rather than this Tennessee team kind of flash in the pan from the transfer portal. I think Heupel can keep it up. Some of these guys have been at Tennessee for a while. I just don't think he has the horses in the back all the way yet, ready to go for a game like this.
Yeah, definitely a good one to watch, though. It should be a great matchup.